Hello, how y'all doing today? It is your girl, B. Valise, with Tried and True Financial Services, where our mission is to assist entrepreneurs with the ABCs of finance to simplify your accounting, budgeting, and credit processes. Come on in, enjoy this segment of Tax Tip Tuesday with me. I have a quick nugget that I want to share with you all this evening that will prove to bless your lives. I think it's great news, and I just want to share it with you all. We are midstream with this announcement. It has been active for a couple of months now. And I just want to make sure that as we wrap up third quarter and we're moving into fourth quarter, that you understand and know what your requirements are with regard to keeping copious notes. You want to be diligent with keeping track of all of your business expenses to make sure that you have adequate records, first of all, to calculate your deductions, and then also to make sure that you are audit ready in case the IRS comes back and wants to look at your books and records, that you have all of your I's dotted and all of your T's crossed to make sure that they are not in a position and do not try to disallow any of your deductions. So come on in, join this quick segment with me. As I always say, I am an emoji lover. So please drop some emojis in the chat for me. Let me know that you're tuning in. Let me know that you're listening to this segment of Tried and True Financial Services Tax Tip Tuesday. Hey, Val. Hey, my Val. Thank you so much for joining. This is a good nugget for you and your business and things that you're doing to help seniors out as you're helping commute and get them to and from their appointments. Make sure that you understand and know, are gas prices up in your state? Gas prices are up everywhere. I filled up today and I still felt the sting of those gas prices. So this is a tax tip for my business owners that the mileage rate for the standard deduction for the standard mileage rate is up to 62.5% for July to December. The first half of the year, the standard mileage rate was just right at 58.5 cents. Okay. So from January to June of 2022, the standard mileage rate was 58.5 cents. For July through December, the IRS is allowing business owners to deduct 62.5 cents for each business mile that you drive. So here's the T on the deduction as it pertains to your vehicle and you driving for business purposes. You have to keep a mileage log. So whether that mileage log is going to be kept manually and you writing things down, whether that mileage log is going to be kept electronically and you have a spreadsheet where you're tracking it, or whether you use a mileage log like Mile IQ or something like that. You have to, regardless, especially when you're using the same vehicle for personal and business purposes. You have to always keep a mileage log, but especially in those situations. So at the beginning of the year, you want to make sure that your tracker, if it's a app that you're using, it's going to ask you. If you're using a spreadsheet, then you need to create a template that you're using. If you need one, then reach out. I can share one with you. But that at the beginning of the year, January 1st, you want to write down what the mileage is on your odometer. And then on 12/31, at the end of the year, you want to write down what the mileage is on your odometer at that time. In between January 1st and December 31st, you want to be tracking every trip that you take in your car. So it's a lot easier to do it using a mileage app. Or if you're using QuickBooks, they've built in functionality in QuickBooks Online where they can track, or you can just integrate one of the apps to your QuickBooks software to make it so much easier, where you just turn it on, turn it off when you're commuting for business miles. Because you have to keep track of the date, the number of miles you've driven, the purpose of that business mile, that business commute. And you want to keep all of that in your tracker so that you can support your deduction that you're taking for business miles. The other thing that I want to say is whether or not, because you have two options when it comes to the miles that you drive for business. You have two options. You can either take the standard mileage rate, which is tied to those numbers that I just shared with you, the 58.5 cents and the 62.5 cents. You can take the standard mileage rate, or you can deduct actual expenses for your vehicle. The actual expenses would include your payments, would include insurance, would include maintenance on your vehicle, tires, gas, oil, all of those things. But you have to have receipts for all of that stuff. And then you have to allocate those expenses. So say, for instance, you use your vehicle half the time for business and half the time for personal. Well, whatever those amounts are for your actual expenses, the ones I just noted to you, then you get to take 50% of that amount. Hey, Aisha, how you doing, sweetie? Thanks for jumping on. So, yes, ma'am. And you too, you do a lot of moving around for business purposes. So, you need to be keeping copious records for this. Make sure that you go back. I don't know how long you've been listening in, but make sure you go back and listen to the full replay. But if you're going to take actual expenses, you need to know what percentage of the time, and that mileage log will help determine that. Because as you're tracking your mileage log, what's going to happen is that it's a simple mathematical equation, right? You take the amount that you've driven for business divided by the total miles that have been put on the vehicle for the year. And that's the percentage use for your business expenses. And so if you're taking actual expenses as opposed to the actual mileage, then you would multiply whatever that percentage, the 50%, times the expenses that you incurred for that vehicle. You can't just write off the full amount if you're using that vehicle sometimes for personal purposes. Okay, so that's why you have to keep copious records, and you don't have to necessarily make those calculations or make the determination whether or not your mileage or your actual expenses are going to be more advantageous for you. When you give all of that information to your tax professional, your CPA, your EA, your tax accountant, they will enter all of that information and make the determination as to which one will give you the greater deduction. And so you can take whichever one is going to give you the better benefit. Yes. All right. And so make sure, again, because of the gas prices are up everywhere. They're up in Georgia, they're up in Maryland, they're up in in the DMV area, they're up here in Michigan, they're up everywhere. Gas prices are up. So the IRS acknowledges that, and they are giving us a boost in the standard mileage rate, up from 58.5 cents to 62.5 cents for the second half of 2022. So that's good information to know. And this is just really a gentle reminder to all of my business owners who are using their vehicle to move around for business purposes that you have to. So many people this year have told me that, oh, I didn't know I needed to keep a log, or I didn't know there's a myth that because you have a vehicle and because you have a business and because you put the business in your vehicle name, or because you pay expenses out of your business account, that it's automatically a deduction. And unfortunately, it's not that simple. There's a lot of moving parts that goes into the calculation of how much of that movement is deductible for you as a business owner. Now, if you have a fleet of cars and you're doing construction, Mile IQ, Aisha, right inside of QuickBooks Online. It integrates right into QuickBooks Online, and I recommend Mile IQ. Yep. Now, if you're a business owner and you're in the construction business and you have a fleet of vans or you have those type of heavy equipment that you use only for business purposes, now you still have to keep a mileage log. You still have to track your mileage. You still need to track what your beginning mileage is, what your ending mileage is, and the fact that you're just using this vehicle for 100% for business use, but you still have to keep copious records. You still want to keep all of your receipts for any maintenance on your vehicle, for your payments, for your insurance. But if you're paying like a bundled insurance rate where that your insurance for the commercial vehicles is tied into another vehicle that you use for personal purposes, like you have to be able to keep track of all of that and know and be able to translate that information to your tax professional so that they can do the calculation and make sure that they are taking the amount of business deduction that you're entitled to for your business. You're very welcome. Okay, so at the end of the day, just know that the IRS recognizes that we're paying a lot more for gas than we have in times past. They're accommodating for that. Okay, and then also just know that you have two options. You can't do it, you can't do both. You can't take the mileage rate and insurance, deduction off of your insurance. You have to either take the mileage rate or actual expenses. And then the actual expenses, you would itemize how much you're paying for the note, how much you're paying for insurance, tires, maintenance, all of that kind of thing. But you, at the end of the day, in order to make the determination whether or not the standard mileage rate is at more advantageous than the actual expenses, you have to keep detailed records. Okay, more often than not, depending on the situation, the mileage rate, these numbers that I'm sharing with you, the 58.5 cents and the 62.5 cents, are typically very nice amounts that give a good deduction for just taking the standard mileage rate. But if you don't necessarily have a newer vehicle and you have some of those actual expenses that I listed that might total up to more than the standard mileage rate, then by all means, take the better benefit. But you got to make sure that you keep track of it all and make sure that you translate that information to your tax professional. So make sure that you're keeping your mileage log throughout the year and that you're not waiting until the end of the year to try to recreate it, because things get lost in translation over 12 months. I cannot hardly remember what happened yesterday or last week. Now you're going to tell me you remember what happened in January and where you drove and how far you drove and all of that. No, it's best as we age and as we have so much on our minds. We have so much that we're doing. We have so much that we're accomplishing from day to day that it's better done when you just write it down while you're in the moment. Trust me. You can thank me later for that, but trust me, it's best done while you're in the moment and you're writing it down, whether you do it at the end of the week or at worst at the end of the month. But please don't wait 12 months later, 6 months later to create your mileage log. Okay. So make sure that you guys know and understand that you're reaching out to your tax professional and you're asking those questions. You're asking if they have any suggestions for what integrates well with how they operate. But what I recommend for a mileage app, if you're using QuickBooks Online, which is what I recommend, I use all Intuit products. Make sure that you reach out to them. And also, just while we're at it, I'm going to go ahead and just remind you guys that if you don't already have QuickBooks Online set up, that as a tax accountant or an accountant, I have the ability to extend a 30% discount on QuickBooks Online for you for up to 6 months. Okay. So if you need that support, you can go ahead and log on to our website at www.triedandtruefs.com and go to the links tab. And then there you will find the link to the discount on QuickBooks Online where you get 30%. If you go directly to their website, I think it might be a greater discount for a shorter period of time. And I've done the math and it shows that this discount is a little bit of a better, a better rate for that. So thanks, Val. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks, Aisha, for joining. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Thanks for chiming in on this week's segment of Tax Tip Tuesday with Tried and True Financial Services, where we help entrepreneurs with the ABCs of finance to simplify your accounting, budgeting, and credit processes. Until next week, you all have a great evening, and we'll talk again soon. Have a good night.